Hey guys, hope you're enjoying your holiday season. I know we are taking a couple weeks break from being in the office and the grind and all that sort of thing. And with that, also the podcast. But we are continuing the countdown of the top 5 most downloaded episodes of the 23 year. To recap, number 5 was Ryan Padena. Number 4 was Kris Krohn. And leading off with number 3, we got Mr. Jack McColl. Jack and I actually became friends after the podcast, which was really cool. He happened to be just moving out to San Diego when we did the recording. And since we become really close friends, and we hang out all the time now, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so with that, super cool episode. Guys really dialed, super smart, but the credit side, the business credit hacking is super, super cool. But anyways, with that, hope you guys are enjoying your holiday season, and let's jump into the episode. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Reports. Today, we are live in the studio here in downtown San Diego, and I got a very special guest who is a new resident of San Diego. I got my man, who's the founder of creditstacking.com. He is the king of debt. I got Mr. Jack McColl. Jack, welcome to the show, my man.
Rich, what's up, man? Happy to be here.
Yeah.
I love your name, by the way. You know, you look rich, you sound rich, and you have a name like Rich. It's awesome.
I appreciate you, brother. It's funny because we can almost connected out in Santorini, Greece. I believe it was either a year ago. It was a year ago. Our friend Brad Williamson connected us via Instagram, and I think we just missed each other.
Yeah, it was in Greece. Our friend connected us, and we both were in Greece, but we unfortunately didn't link up.
Yeah, but it's crazy, and now it goes full circle, and I'm like, dude, we connected on Instagram. Like, this guy's living in San Diego now. I'm like, you gotta come on the show, man.
Hell yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
I'm super excited.
Of course. So tell me a little bit about what you guys do. What do you guys do with creditstacking.com?
The number one thing that I'm best at is teaching entrepreneurs how to get business funding. By far the easiest way to raise money if you're looking for a few $100,000 is through 0% interest business credit cards. And I'll specifically show entrepreneurs how to optimize their credit, make themselves look attractive to the lenders, and get approved for anywhere between $50,000 and $300,000 of 0% interest business credit.
And do you need LLCs and entities in order to do this, or you can do it under your personal credit?
So you can do it as a sole proprietorship with your social security number, but it's definitely much better if you have a business entity. So you don't need to have some business that's been operating for many years. You don't need to show revenue, things like that, but it is best to have an entity like an LLC. But the most important thing by far is having strong personal credit. So you do need an LLC and you do want to have strong personal credit. But the cool thing about 0% interest business cards is you don't have to show any financials. So no tax returns, no bank statements, the income is unverified. So when you talk about like SBA loans or business lines of credit, those credit products, you need to show financials. For entrepreneurs that are maybe just getting into business, maybe they're not making much money yet, but you can build strong personal credit. It is so easy to get access to these 0% interest business cards.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, when we get real estate mortgages, a lot of people get them under their personal name. We prefer to take title under the LLCs, the entities that actually own the real estate. One, it doesn't show up on my personal debt to income, which is quite nice. And then number 2, it adds another layer of liability, asset protection, right? Which is kind of nice. So same thing with the credit. I noticed if we get business credit cards to the entities, they don't show up on my personal credit, which is quite nice.
For sure. I mean, I was an entrepreneur for 6 or 7 years, funding my business with my own hard-earned money, doing business loans, getting an equity partner, and I had no idea about business credit. And specifically what blew my mind about business credit is, one, you can get access to hundreds of thousands of dollars, but then you can get access to these accounts that don't report to your personal credit profile. So if you get a personal credit card, you max that card out, it's going to absolutely wreck your score. But if you get like a 50 to 100K business credit account, you can max that card out, use that money to start your business or scale your business, and it keeps your personal credit score unaffected. So when I learned these two things, it absolutely blew my mind. This was 3 years ago, and I started my journey in business credit. And I was able to actually get in touch with these individuals called business relationship managers. These individuals are the bridge between consumers like me and you and the underwriters. So the humans that look at credit applications and give you specific limits. The average person's going to go online and do an online application, but that's just a computer algorithm that's giving them a limit. So that's why the average person is getting very small limits, or they're just getting denied. So when you can work with a business relationship manager, that's how you get your application to the underwriting teams, and that's how you get the big limits. I'm talking $50,000, $60,000, up to $100,000 limits is because of these business relationship managers. So that was the one thing I learned by getting in touch with these individuals. And also there's certain information that these business relationship managers could tell me over a phone call that they couldn't elsewhere promote. Like the banks are going to tell you the internal criteria to getting approved for big limits, but I was able to extract this information from these individuals and then use that information so I could get approved for very high limits. And then I was able to use that information to teach other people. And so fast forward 3 years, I'm currently teaching over 2,000 entrepreneurs right now in my mentorship program on how specifically to optimize your credit profile based on exactly what the underwriters are looking for. And when you can do that, and then you can set up your business correctly and then build strategic bank relationships with the right banks, it is so easy to get approved for $100,000 of 0% interest credit or more.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you for us, we use Amex Gold and Amex Business Platinum for two of our companies here. And it was relatively easy to set up. I was surprised that there was no limit on both of those. We've never pushed them past like 100, but I'm sure at a certain point that probably would put some sort of stop. But I was actually very impressed with like how easy the process was. I will say for my personal, I've been using Amex Blue Cash Rewards
Blue Cash
for like 10 years now. And so maybe because I had good history for 10 years that when I opened up the business cards, it was just really quick and easy.
For sure. So previous banking relationships certainly help. And so like the most important thing is having strong personal credit. The second most important thing is having bank relationships. So ways you can build relationships is either through personal credit cards, business checking accounts, or business credit cards, or other loans like, auto loans, installment loans with those specific banks. So there's some banks you want to prioritize building a relationship with, like Chase, Bank of America, US Bank, and American Express. But other banks like Wells Fargo or Citi, actually Citi specifically, Citi does not have any 0% interest business credit cards. And if you're like me and you're trying to get 0% interest business credit, if you're spending your time building a relationship with Citi, like banking with Citi, you're not building a relationship with a bank that has the best credit products. Or instead, you could build a relationship by banking with Chase and getting the Chase personal credit cards. So Chase trusts you a lot more. That way, when you go and apply for a business credit account, you're most likely going to get a 50 or bigger approval.
Which credit card companies, in your estimation, are the easiest to get funding?
Chase for sure. Chase gives out the biggest limits. And really the formula on doing that is you first want to get one or two Chase personal credit cards. Then you want to open up a personal checking account and a business checking account and put some money in those accounts and do your business operations in these bank accounts. So they can see the activity, they can see the transactions, they can see the liquidity. And when they see that, they start to trust you more. And also because you have that personal credit card with Chase, you're spending money on the card and you're paying it off on time, they're going to trust you. And then when you can work with a business relationship manager at Chase, that's how you get the massive, massive limits. And there's one last thing, Rich. There's some banks that are more relationship based than others. Like specifically Bank of America and Chase are the most relationship based. US Bank is a little bit less relationship based. And there's some other smaller banks that are actually issued by a third party credit card issuer that are also less relationship based. So really, I think every entrepreneur should be focusing on how to build a relationship with Chase because you're going to get so much more value by getting bigger credit card limits.
Yeah, absolutely. And us being on the real estate side, we have all these different properties. Each property is owned by an LLC, and each LLC will have its own operating account. So all the income expenses flow in and out of that account. So we have multiple bank accounts. And I always suggest, for investors, like go with a reputable bank. Don't go with the regional one that, we've seen a lot of bank runs recently. There's probably going to be more. So go with a bigger bank. So we use BOFA. How is BOFA in terms of flexibility in getting these lines of credits?
Bank of America?
Yeah.
BOFA. That's funny.
You haven't heard that?
I've never heard that name.
The king of debt hasn't heard BOFA.
No, that's funny.
Come on.
BOFA. It's funny. No, Bank of America is really good. They are very relationship based. So when you can do, your banking at those banks, they're going to give you much better limits. And so specifically, Bank of America, BOFA, has 3 different 0% interest cards. And so each bank, when you go to apply for business credit cards, there should be, if you're trying to maximize your efforts, there's different amounts of cards you should be applying for. Like Chase, for example, 1 to 2 business credit cards. At Bank of America, because they have 3 0% cards, you can actually apply for all 3 of those 0% cards. They usually, if you don't have a previous relationship with Bank of America, they'll give you slightly less limits. But one thing you can do that's specifically cool, and I just did this, and this is major, major sauce, Rich. I had a $30,000 0% card at Bank of America. I used the money to invest. I paid off the balance. That 0% interest period on that $32,000 card expired. The balance is now at 0. I then applied for 3 new 0% cards. It's the travel 0%, the customized 0%, and the unlimited 0%. I got 11K, 22K, and 11K. So I got 40 something K of brand new 0%. I then sent a request in by calling the number on the back of the card and asked them to move the limit from that expired $32,000 0% card and move that limit to one of my brand new 0% cards. So now instead of having $42,000 of 0%, now I have over $70,000 of 0% for 9 months at Bank of America. That's because I had that first one, then I requested them to move that limit over to one of the new ones.
And then the promotional 0% interest resets for that new limit that you bring over?
Exactly.
Whoa.
Exactly. So that's major. And not all banks will let you do that. Chase will let you do that. American Express will let you do that. BofA will as well. But US Bank will not let you move limits, which is quite unfortunate.
Interesting. My buddy's in the car industry. He's a dealer, and he sells like a lot of nice exotic cars. But he said US Bank is like one of the easiest to get like financing. They'll push a lot of auto loans through. So I find it interesting that on the credit side, they're a little bit less relation based.
I have heard that at US Bank. One thing I will mention about buying luxury cars. So I just bought a 2022 Mercedes-Benz GLE 63S. It was 130K after the tax. And I was actually able to stack auto loans to get that car with no money out of pocket. So I was able to do that with 2 different banks and stack those 2 auto loans on top of each other, which helped me get that car with no money out of pocket.
What do you mean when you say that?
So there's some banks that will give you auto loans that they don't actually verify you buy a car. So I got a $100,000 auto loan at Chase, and I was really only able to do that because I had a really good relationship, because I had business cards, business banking, personal banking, and personal credit cards. So they gave me just under 100K, 99,900. And then I was able to get an auto loan at a different bank that ended up sending me the money that I used to pay for that extra 30K on top. So it's no money out of pocket.
And these 2 notes are not secured to a vehicle.
The one is. The Chase is.
The 100K
Chase
one?
is, but the one I stacked on top is not.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So with these credit cards right now, so you get the 0%, you said typically 12 to 18 months. And then after the 12 to 18 months, what do you tell us to do? Is it smart to open other cards for 0%, pay them off? What's the game plan there?
So it really depends on your strategy and the business model, the investment strategy that you're working with for that capital. But you can always get more 0% interest. 0% interest. If you can't pay it back before the introductory period ends, you can always get a brand new 0% card at a different bank and then balance transfer that balance over to the new bank. So if you get a Chase $50,000 card, you get to the end of that 12-month period, and maybe you're in a real estate deal and you haven't paid it back yet. You need to get a different 0% card to then transfer it to. You can go to other banks and get 50K there and then transfer that balance over to that new card.
Yeah. I think in the real estate investing space, this is huge because with a lot of these projects, at least the ones we buy, we're always buying stuff at a discount. We're buying stuff where we can add tremendous value. And so, using some of the 0% interest short term is great because we're adding so much value to these properties. We can go to refi, pull money out, and then use that to pay back, cards in this instance. So that is a very unique play, and I could see a lot of real estate investors, if they were more aware of this, to utilize it. I think a lot of people don't know that it's possible.
They don't. It's an absolute game changer. I run a lot of ads on social media, and there's so many people that comment on my ads saying, this is a scam, 0% interest is not possible. There's no such thing as 0% interest. The Fed is increasing the interest rates. If you just Google 0% interest business credit, you'll see it's certainly possible. But I don't blame people for not knowing, because I didn't know for several years of being an entrepreneur. And then I learned about it, and it absolutely blew my mind. And so 0% for the introductory period, which is on the low end 9 months, which is Bank of America, and up to 18 months on the high end. And then you can always get more cards when you need to, and then balance transfer those balances over. So really, you can do 0% for years, and that's what I've been doing. These are for anyone watching the video. These are my credit card books. This is my main stack. I have easily over 50 cards in this stack right here, and then this is my side stack.
Wow, you got 50 credit cards.
I need to recount because I've got a lot more recently. Probably 12 more. I'm probably over 60.
Wow. And how many different banks hold those credit cards?
20 probably.
Wow. And what would you say your overall combined spending limit is?
600K.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went from 0 business credit to over $500,000 in business credit in just over a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So super quick. And really, I did this on brand new businesses just by optimizing my credit profile based on the information that I extracted from these business relationship managers. I made myself attractive to these banks just based on my personal credit profile, and then built relationships with the right banks. I didn't even have much liquidity, maybe $5,000, $10,000 in the accounts before applying for the cards. And I was able to do this with no income verification, no bank statements, no tax returns, etc. And so once I started to see like pretty good success for myself doing it, I started to teach other people. And then once I had more data points to see what was working, what wasn't working, I was really able to hone down and just figure out the best possible blueprint that would work every single time. And again, I'm teaching thousands of entrepreneurs, and there's some people that will get like $200,000 to $300,000 in the matter of days just following this blueprint. Someone just posted in our Facebook group, you got approved for $300,000 in 3 days just by shooting all the applications out. It probably took him a little time to optimize his profile. Sometimes it takes people a month, sometimes it takes people a few months, but when they optimize it, they follow the exact blueprint that I'll teach them, and then they go apply the exact way that I tell them to apply, and they'll see massive success. And when it comes to the applications, there's some information you specifically don't want to include on the application, and there's some information you need to make sure it's super accurate. And one thing I will mention is when it's asking for the projected income of the personal income and also the business revenue, those are projections, those are estimates. And so you can, even if you're a brand new business, of course you're optimistic. Of course you're going to make, you're trying to make a lot of money, a lot of revenue in your business. And so there's specific thresholds of revenue that you can estimate on these applications. And if you estimate too high, the chance of a financial review is much higher. And so I know these exact certain thresholds of where you want to be, and it differs between each of the banks. But if you can include the right information on these applications, that's another really, really important piece.
What are some pieces of information you do not want to include?
So if you are self-employed, a better way to do it is say you're employed by your own company. So when they see employed versus self-employed, that puts you in lower risk. And so that's an easy hack right there.
If you love real estate investing, passive income, and tax benefits, but don't have the time, my company, Summers Capital, is buying boutique hotels right now. We source the deals, we renovate the properties, and we even handle all the day-to-day management, making it truly hands-off for our investors. If you want to learn more to see if we can help you, visit summerscapital.com/invest to book a call with our team. Again, that's summerscapital.com/invest. Now back to the show. I got a question about the line of credit. So like right now, with the interest rate environment that we're in, rates are very expensive. Hard money is anywhere from 9, 10 on the low end, is expensive as 12, 13, even 14% right now. And so obviously if you can secure some 0% interest, borrow it for 12, 18 months, that's going to be a lot cheaper than paying 12, 13% in today's climate. How can you leverage these lines of credits? And is there a way to do it for 0% to where I can just use that same as cash?
So with business lines of credit, you won't get 0%, but you will get them at pretty low interest. Like I have
single digit?
Single digit, yeah. Single digit on the lowest end. Like if you have good credit, you can get single digit. In the last 6 months, it's been a little bit harder to get single digit. It's going to be like, closer to 10. But I have one at a bank that is single digit. And basically what the cool thing about lines of credit is some of the banks, you can get them with no financial review required, no documentation whatsoever. But most, you do need to show some financials. But basically, those are cool because you only pay interest when you're using the money. And you can straight pull from that account to straight cash in your account. Where a business credit card, you have to use specific strategies and sometimes different platforms to actually liquidate that business credit into cash. But with business lines of credit, you can just say, hey, I want 50K of my 50K line of credit. They're just going to put that 50K into your bank account, and then you can do whatever you want with that 50K.
I love that. Do you have a lot of real estate investor clients in your group?
For sure. For sure. A lot of people who are flipping, a lot of people who are doing the BRRRR strategy, a lot of people who are doing the Airbnb, 100%. Like, for most people, if you have an extra 50, 100K, 200K, you can do so many more deals in a year, in 2 years. It's insane. So actually the most amount of people that are leveraging these strategies are real estate investors.
What's the most line of credit that you've seen someone get approved for?
On one line of credit, 100K.
100K.
I've many times actually.
Yeah. What about in terms of like just multiple credit cards, business credit cards, and just stacking them?
Over 300 grand.
Wow.
I mean, I have dozens of people in credit stacking my program who have gotten easily over $300,000.
In a matter of how long?
Sometimes 1 month, sometimes 4 months, but a short period of time.
Yeah. So other than answering those things correctly, the income and then saying you're self-employed versus unemployed, any other major tips that you can share?
you want to be submitting these applications as close to your address, your personal address, or your business address as possible. If your personal business address is in San Diego, California, and you're in New York, they're going to see that IP address of New York and think it's a bit weird that you're applying across the country. So in that scenario, you want to use a VPN to San Diego to put your IP address as close to San Diego as possible. So that's one tip right there. In terms of personal income, there's a big range, and it will depend on certain banks, but American Express is the most strict on the personal income, where basically if you list a personal income over 175K, the chance of them requesting financials is dramatically higher. And so if you do make more than 175 and you can show it on a tax return, then by all means report that. But I wouldn't be super optimistic at American Express with personal income and say 250 grand if you're only making 100. You have to be a little bit more conservative on American Express.
Yeah. I have used Amex for like 10 years, and I feel like over the 10 years, my income has increased a little bit each year. So I put in these increases, and each time they increase my limit. And then, like I alluded to with the gold and the platinum cards, there was no limit, which is pretty cool. But I mean, that was 10 years of like, solid increments, increases. But I like working with Amex. Like you call them and someone real answers the phone right away. They seem to be very helpful. I do have another credit card with Chase. They're okay. And I have a Capital One as well. But I would say Amex is hands down, at least for me personally, my favorite to work with. Do you have a personal favorite?
Chase and American Express for sure. The best limits, best platforms, the best points. And I'm looking forward to going into credit card points and luxury travel. But they produce the best points for sure. So what you're referring to, Rich, about the charge cards, the Amex Business Gold, Amex Business Platinum, when you say there's no limit, it's true in a sense. There is something called spending power. So you couldn't put $1 million purchase on the card, but maybe if your spending power is very good, you might be able to put a $400,000 transaction on that card just because you've built that spending power up over time. If someone gets the Amex Business Gold for the first time on a brand new relationship with American Express, there's not going to be a preset limit, but their spending power might only be $5,000. It might be 20 grand, but there is the spending power. And the way to increase that spending power is to spend on the card. And the more time you can max it out and pay it down, the higher they're going to increase your spending power. Chase doesn't have products exactly like that. So American Express is quite unique in terms of these charge cards that have the spending power that can increase over time. Like when I was running an e-commerce store, I had one that went to 150K in spending power just because I was spending on the card, paying it down, spending on the card, paying it down. So that's how you increase the spending power. But if you have a preset limit on the traditional credit cards, like at Chase, if you have a 50K business credit card, that's a preset limit. And there are ways to increase it through doing a credit line increase, which you can do by calling the number on the back of the card. Some banks will give you a credit line increase with a hard inquiry, and some will give you a credit line increase without a hard inquiry. So Chase, actually, this is a good tip. Chase used to require a hard inquiry to give you a credit line increase, but they recently changed that policy. So you can actually call Chase, call the number on the back of your card, and ask them to give you a credit line increase. And actually, one other tip to do right before that is to let them know that your personal income has increased recently. And then they'll ask you, what did it increase to? Give them a number that's slightly higher than what was previously reported, and then ask for that credit line increase. And they're most likely going to give it to you if you have good, strong personal credit. Because they will do a soft credit check, which doesn't impact your credit score, but they still look at parts of your credit. And based on your score and other things, they'll say yes or no to that credit line increase.
That makes
sense. And then
sense.
Speaking about soft credit checks, one reason why you always want to maintain good, strong personal credit is because banks will routinely do soft credit checks on your report. So say you have, this massive spending power on your Amex card. If your personal credit card went to crap, you went down to a 600 credit score, maybe because high utilization or some late payments, they'll see that through a soft credit check, and in result, they'll cap you on your business credit card. And so that's why it's super important to keep good credit for that reason, so they don't decrease your limits. And then also another note on why you need strong personal credit maintained is because you can always get more credit if you have strong personal credit. And so I feel bad for people who are using personal credit cards in business and they find themselves in a tough position where they can't pay it down. Their utilization is super high. Their score is then super low. And at that point, you will not be able to get approved for any type of credit products. But if you had these limits maxed out on the business side and your personal score is still really good, it still gives you the ability to apply for more credit So it's much less risky if you keep your personal credit strong and very clean.
That's a good point. I agree. That's much less risky to have it under
Super
business.
important.
Yeah, 100. So what business credit card gives you the best points for travel and all the other accommodations?
There's a couple at Chase that will give you either 1.5 points per dollar spent. They have one that's actually called the Ink Premier. It gives you 2.5 points per dollar spent, which is super high. 2.5 is really high. American Express on the Amex Business Charge cards, like the Amex Business Gold, if you use that card for dining or advertising, you get 4 points per dollar spent.
Wow.
Which is insane. And when it comes to points, not all points are created equal. There's some points at banks that you can transfer those points to different airline or travel partners, and some banks you can't. So the banks you can't is Wells Fargo and US Bank and Bank of America. You have to use those points either for cash back or through travel through their portal. And so why that's terrible is because you're fixed at a 1-to-1 ratio, where if you have points at either Chase, American Express, Citi, Capital One, or Bilt, you can actually transfer those points to different transfer partners, whether it be airlines, hotels, etc., and you can find really good deals on airline or hotel points and get a much better value than that 1-to-1. So for example, I just used 75,000 Chase points that I transferred to Lufthansa, an airliner, and I was able to book a $6,000 flight with 75,000 Chase points. So if I did cash back on Chase with 75,000 points, I would get $750 on a 1-to-1 ratio. But I was able to find a really good deal for this business class laydown seat from San Diego to Barcelona for my birthday trip like we were talking about. And instead, I was able to get this $6,000 flight for only 75,000 points. And that's because I've been accumulating these points at banks that you can transfer those points from.
Wow. Do we have a direct flight now from San Diego to Barcelona?
No, it goes through Munich.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I took the Lufthansa from San Diego to Munich. I was going to say Barcelona. I might have to hop on one of those flights soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I always try to go direct whenever I can. It's just so much easier.
Yeah.
But I feel you, man. I feel like, especially with these longer flights.
Dude, it's a game changer. And for any entrepreneur that's not taking advantage of credit and credit card points, it's a massive disadvantage. It's a massive disadvantage because you're strapping yourself for capital. Like when I started in business, I had between $5,000 and $10,000 to my name, and I was so limited. And at that point, I was selling hoverboards, and those were super viral. I was one of the first companies to sell hoverboards in the States, and I had such little money where if I only had hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in these hoverboards in China and have them shipped over to me, I could have made millions of dollars. But I had to send my $5,000 to $10,000 to China, wait for these hoverboards to get over here, sell them, make my margin, send them more money, wait for it again. And it was a very slow process. But if I only had more money to work with, I would have made so much more money. So then that kind of led me into the next way of learning how to finance a business, and that was through an equity partner. And I was like, okay, now I know I need a lot of money to scale hard in business.
Yeah.
And so,
but you got to give up equity.
I had to give away equity. I gave away 51% of my company, which absolutely sucked because they were supposed to do all these things. They didn't do the things. I was naive. My contracts were trash, and I had ended up having to buy them out, and it was a horrible situation. But then my third business, I had a spring break travel company, and I got a business loan. That's the only way I knew how to finance businesses without my hard-earned cash and without an equity partner. But I was paying interest for this loan. And so if you're paying 10 to 20% interest on capital to scale or to start a business, it's going to make it 10 to 20% more difficult to actually succeed in the business. And so, it led to an acquisition, which was very, very, awesome for us. But, at the end of the day, we were paying interest. But it was a very good eye opener for me where if I knew I could borrow more money to invest into my business so I can move a lot quicker, it's going to bring good things. And that's why I found business credit. You can get approved for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you can move so much quicker.
With all this credit stacking and all that sort of stuff and all these points that you can allude to, what's like the coolest perk that you've ever experienced in terms of maybe it's a trip or like something like cool that you got to take?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, dude, I've flown so many business and first class seats around the world just on credit card points. Last year for my girlfriend's birthday, we went to the Maldives, stayed at the Ritz-Carlton, one of the nicest hotels in the Maldives. And I used like just over 300,000 points instead of paying $12,000 cash, and we flew business class in, we flew first class out. on Emirates, and Emirates has the first class double decker plane with the bar on the plane, with the showers on the plane. It's called an A380, is the aircraft type. The only A380 that has a shower, which is Emirates. And so, I've seen what you can do with credit card points, and I've seen how you can absolutely blow them by using them in the portal. If you use them in the portal, you're getting maybe a 1.5x return on your points. But if you can find good deals with these airlines or hotels, you can get a 3 to 20x on your value of points. And like when I was staying in Santorini, where we barely crossed paths, I was staying at Hyatt properties, and I was getting a 4x multiple on my points. And so, so many of my hotels have been free. So many of my amazing luxury flights have been free. And that's the second reason I think by being an entrepreneur and not leveraging credit, it's a massive disservice to yourself, because if you're using debit cards or you're using cash, which is crazy because some people are still doing that, you're missing out on so much. You're missing out on the cash back, you're missing out on the points, and maybe travel is not something you've done because of how expensive it is. But if you had a few $100,000 of points that you would accumulate for free just by using the best and the right cards based on the transactions, then you get these points and you can go enjoy these amazing things like luxury hotels and business class seats around the world.
Hey guys, real quick, the only way the show grows, the only way we continue to bring on bigger and better guests is if you guys rate, review, and share the show. So if you could take 2 seconds or the click of the thumb to review on Apple or Spotify, it will mean the world to me. But more importantly, we'll be able to reach more entrepreneurs and more real estate investors and help them build wealth through this podcast. Now back to the show. From the credit card perspective, how are they leveraging on their back end the points and then funneling it to you as the consumer in the form of cash for maybe $1,000, or you go take this fancy trip to the Maldives for $12,000?
Yeah. Okay. So the bank is giving you the points, and basically how they're affording giving you those bank points is through the merchant processing fee. So that's how they can afford by giving you the points in the first place. They're only going to give you the 1 to maybe 1.5x of value on your points. But where you can get that $12,000 value, that $5,000 value, or I should say, 2 to 20x value is by transferring those points to an airline program or transferring them to a hotel program. And so there's ways to search hotels and search flights and to find super, super good deals, because when you transfer those bank points to these airliners or hotels, you're converting them into the currency of those companies. So if you're transferring points from Chase to Marriott, now they're Marriott points. And so Chase just gave you the same 1-to-1 value, because if you transfer 100,000 points from Chase to Marriott, they're going to give you 100,000 Marriott points. And so they have a relationship where it's a 1-to-1 value. So there's no money that the bank is losing, but we're able to now find really good deals on these hotel platforms and the airline platforms. So
because you're a new sign up, and they have these new sign up programs to where they give you all this leverage on the front end.
So it's not even that. Well, what I think you're mentioning is the sign-up bonuses to get these cards in the first place. But now where we're at is transferring the points to these loyalty programs.
That's what I mean. Like if you're new, let's say you're new at American Airlines, you've never flown them before, or maybe Marriott, and you join their honors program or whatever, you get a bunch of bonuses for being a new sign-up, right?
So if you were to sign up a brand new credit card or sign up for the program, you won't get points if you sign up for their program for the first time. But if you sign up for like a credit card, you will get that sign-up bonus.
If you spend X amount of money.
If you spend X amount of money, yeah.
Got it.
But okay, so rewind just one quick sec. So we're transferring the points from the bank over to these loyalty programs, and there's ways to search to find these really good deals. And basically the best time to get these massive value on these flights is within 6 weeks before the departure. Because basically airlines like Lufthansa will, all these big airlines, they'll try to sell these first class and business class seats, but most likely they're not going to sell all of them. And so about 6 weeks before the departure date, they're going to open it up to award space, which means you can then book it on points, and you can book it on points for a really good deal, because they don't want the seats to be empty. So they're going to try to sell the seats. And then about 6 to 2 weeks before the flight, they're going to open up award space and allow people to book on points, just so they can get someone in the seat and not just leave the seat empty and not make anything.
Yeah, I love that. I always say for any like business owner out there or entrepreneur, real estate investor, like, if you can make it work, spend a little bit extra or spend the extra points to get into business or first class, whether it's a longer flight, which, obviously you get the comfort, you get the drinks, you get all that stuff included. But from a networking standpoint, it's like now you're in the first class lounges. Now you're sitting next to folks that have money that could potentially become a client or a investor, where you're not going to have that same networking effect sitting in economy. And all it takes is for you to meet one investor or one client, that strokes a couple $100,000 check, and hey, that's that's your ROI right there.
For sure. And specifically with the aircraft, the A380, the double-decker planes, there's a lounge, like a bar in the back. You can go stand up, order drinks, get champagne. There's couches and stuff. There's literally a lounge on these planes, and it's super good for networking. And these are people that are most likely paying between $5,000 and $12,000 for these first-class seats that you can just leverage some points and go hang out with them.
Wow. So they got a bar where you stand up and hang out in the middle of the flight.
One of the trips I went on recently was in February. It was a trip with me and 20 friends. We were doing a business mastermind trip in the French Alps, and there was 20 of us that flew Emirates business and first class from JFK to Milan, and it was literally 20 of us who spent, I think it was 72,000 points instead of, I think it was $5,000, 72,000 points, which comes out to about $720 instead of paying the $5,000 for that seat. And then it was the 20 of us in the back of this Emirates A380 that were just, enjoying champagne, talking, networking, having a good time.
Yeah, dude, you're always putting out good like travel content, dude. You're always traveling all over the world. I encourage all the listeners to follow Jack at King of Debt. But yeah, dude, where are you traveling to next, man?
I'm going to Ibiza for my birthday, and that's going to be the start to a good European summer. But before we wrap up, can I go into detail on how people can optimize their profile? Cool, because I really want to make sure people have super tangible strategies. And so really when you're looking at your personal credit profile, if you have negative payment history, like late payments, collections, charge-offs, you want to find a credit repair company to get those removed first. That's going to be the first thing you want to do is clean up that payment history. Then you're going to want to look at the amount of hard inquiries you have on your profile. If you have over 3 in the last 6 months on any specific bureau, you want to find someone who can help you actually remove or dispute and get those inquiries deleted. There's dispute letters you can send yourself, or you can work with a credit repair company that will help you get those removed.
How hard is it to get these inquiries disputed? So like, for example,
it's very easy.
Whenever we do a new real estate deal, they're pulling, and sometimes
and they pulled a ton.
I might have a couple lenders size it up, and I usually will not have them pull credit with a hard inquiry until we have a letter of intent and we have a term sheet that we decide to move forward on. We'll pay the deposit, then they'll pull. But if I do 3 real estate deals over the course of 6 months, I'm going to have 3 different hard inquiries. You're saying that there's a way for me to have that removed?
They are super easy to remove.
Really?
One of the things that, one of many things I teach in my group, but there's also professionals who can literally just help you do an inquiry sweep, get those removed. So that's the second thing. Payment history, look at your inquiries, because if you have too many inquiries, you're going to get denied for credit accounts for sure. Then you want to look at your utilization. If you have any accounts above 30% utilization on any revolving accounts, you want to bring that under 30% utilization. Ideally under 10% utilization. That's going to optimize and give you the best possible score.
Now, what if it's 0? Does it actually hurt you if you're at 0?
0 is good. Like best is like 5%.
Okay.
Best is 5%. So
why is that? Why
it's
is
just to show them you're
0?
using a little bit and not just you're inactive.
Got it.
To show a little bit, but not a huge deal. If you can show 0, that's still really, really good. So then you're looking at utilization, and then next you want to look at your average age of your credit profile. And by the way, the easiest way to check your profile is through Experian.com or CreditKarma.com. You can check your credit, which I highly recommend everyone to do. But you can check your average age on your profile. And if you don't already have at least 2 years of average age, you want to find someone that can add you as an authorized user to their account. So that account will report on your credit profile, and you'll piggyback on that age, and it's going to increase your average age. Because the more age you have on your profile, the less risky you look to lenders, which means you're going to get better approvals.
So remind me, the best way to increase the average age is by doing what?
By getting someone who has an old credit card account to add you as an authorized user. Like if I had a 10-year-old credit card account, I could add you, Rich, as an authorized user. The bank's going to send me a card with your name on it. I'm going to cut it up, not give it to you, but my account, my 10-year-old account is going to show up on your credit profile.
And with the same credit limit too?
With the same credit limit, yeah.
Whoa.
And so if your average was less than 10, by having this 10-year-old account, it's going to increase that average on your profile. And so I wouldn't do more than 2 or 3, not more than 3 for sure, but that's an easy way to increase your average age. So once you get your average age figured out, then you want to look at the amount of accounts you have and the collective personal credit limits you have on your profile. I wouldn't try to do business credit before having at least $15,000 of collective personal credit and having at least 3 primary credit accounts, one of them being at a tier 1 bank, being like Chase, American Express, US Bank, Bank of America, some of those really big banks. Those accounts look better on your profile than credit union accounts or like store accounts like Victoria's Secret or Sephora, those type of trash accounts. You want to have an account from a big bank, and you want to have at least 3 primary credit cards. The more, the better. But you also don't want to apply for too many too quick. I would not apply for more than 3 primary accounts in the span of 6 months, because it basically, if someone on the street is asking everyone for money, they come to you, Rich, and they're going to ask you for money, you're probably not going to give, maybe you won't give it to them because you're like, that person's just been asking everyone for money. It looks a bit fishy. And so if the banks see that, all these brand new open credit accounts on your profile, and then the next bank sees it, they're like, this looks a little weird, looks a little bit risky.
Yeah.
So that's why you want to be so strategic about the personal credit cards you apply for and get approved for, because there's so much value in these personal credit cards to build your profile. And so when it comes to building your collective limits, like I said, you want to be above 15K. And the 2 easiest ways to do this is by credit line increases and applying for high limit personal credit cards. And so before a credit line,
above 15K, what does that mean?
$15,000 of collective personal credit limits.
Available credit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I had a $10,000 limit, a $2,000, and a $3,000, I'd be at 15K collectively. But that's kind of the bare minimum of where you want to be
in order to apply for a business credit card.
Yeah, to maximize your results.
Yeah.
So the first way through credit line increases, we briefly talked about that earlier, but before credit line increase, you want to make sure you have good personal credit, so they're going to want to give you that credit line increase. Secondly, you want to be applying for only high limit personal credit cards, and I have a list of 5 of them, the personal credit cards that I've seen to give the best limits. The Chase Freedom Unlimited, the Chase, one of the Sapphire cards, one of the Amex co-branded cards. So this is Amex Delta, Amex Hilton, Amex Delta, Amex Hilton, and Amex, is it Hyatt? Yeah, there's a third Amex co-branded card. Okay. So I'll list them again.
I think Chase is Hyatt, because I have a Chase Hyatt.
Okay, Hilton, Marriott, and Delta. Those are the 3 co-branded personal credit cards at American Express. So I'll list them again. The 5 high-limit personal credit cards that I recommend is Chase Freedom Unlimited, one of the Chase Sapphire cards, one of the Amex co-branded cards, the Apple card, and also the Bilt credit card.
What is the Bilt credit card?
So
I've never heard of it.
Bilt is actually a credit card you can use to pay rent on. Bilt gives you an account number and a routing number that you can use to pay your rent. So it actually doesn't look like you're paying rent with a credit card, because they give you that account and routing number.
And then you'll get points for paying your rent?
You get points for paying your rent. You get 1 point per dollar spent when you pay your rent, and you don't get charged a credit card fee because it doesn't look like a credit card, because they give you that account number and that routing number. And another really cool thing about Bilt, not only does it give you a high limit for most people, is Bilt is the only program that allows you to transfer points into American Airlines. Like Chase can't transfer points into American Airlines. Neither can Capital One, Citi, or American Express. Bilt is the only program you can do that. And so when you're looking at domestic flights and booking points to get really good value on your points, Bilt is the only program that allows you to transfer your points into American Express, which is awesome.
Interesting. I'm going to have to look that up. I'm going to have to definitely look that up to get points for rent where I'm living. And
dude, it is a game changer.
And I can transfer those points right into the Amex.
You can transfer your points to American Airlines.
American Airlines. Got it. Got it.
So that was how you increase your collective limits. Ideally, you want to be between 40,000 of collective limits and 80,000. If you go too high, you can actually hurt you a little bit.
Really?
So you want to be under 100K of personal
available
collective
credit?
Yeah.
Because mine's well above that.
Yeah.
So you're saying that's a bad. Mine's probably closer to like 200K in available.
It makes it a bit harder. I've seen
now
people.
You have 600K though, right?
Of business credit.
Oh, this is business.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm talking about just personal credit.
Personal, okay.
I'm really going through how to optimize your personal credit profile to make you look as attractive as possible to get these big business credit limits. And so if you're way over 100 grand of personal credit limits, I recommend to bring them down a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah, mine's probably close to 200 personal. I don't utilize much of it, but you're saying, would you cancel some of those?
I would not cancel because I want the age on that account, but I would reduce the limit.
So let me ask you this question. So for someone that had poor credit, let's say they had a 650, 625 credit score, how long would that person take to improve their credit to something that's respectable?
So it depends on if that 620 is a result of bad payment history or high utilization. High utilization can easily drop your score 100 points from 750 down to 650. And if you just pay your utilization off,
shoots up.
It's going to shoot right back up when the statement closes on each of those accounts, shoot right back up. But if it's payment history, if you have collections or late payments, it could take several months to actually get those removed to boost you up. But utilization is the easiest way to move your score. So I would first focus on that.
So if you have like delinquent payments and all that in your credit history, you're saying that you can actually have those removed?
You can hire a professional, have them send dispute letters, and through the Fair Credit Reporting Act, there's very good laws that protect consumers like us, where if you could dispute these negative items, there's very specific timeframes that these creditors and the bureaus have to prove that you actually made this mistake or that you had this collection, et cetera. And there's really good strategies where you can, fight and dispute these things where they can actually prove that it's yours, because maybe there was an inaccuracy in the system or other things. But it's very common if you're working with a good credit repair professional that they can help get these items removed for you.
Yeah, dude, you're like a wealth of knowledge. But I was thinking just now, like all this stuff you're spitting out about all the credit card debt. I was thinking Dave Ramsey and everything he preaches is like the complete opposite of what you're preaching. But it all makes sense. 0%, as long as you're not paying interest. And you can leverage that 0% into growing your business, whether it's real estate investing, whether it's other lines of business. And it makes sense. And then in addition to that, you double dip and you get the points, you get all these free trips, get to fly first class, and that's leads to additional networking. So definitely something that I think should be leveraged as long as you're doing it the right way, right? There's always good debt and bad debt.
Good debt and bad debt, baby. Yeah. You use it the right way, you leverage it, you invest in yourself, invest in your business, you're most likely going to see great returns. If you have more money, I think the chance of succeeding in that business increases, because most likely, people are strapped for cash. I was strapped for cash, and it's so hard to actually scale if you're strapped. You have your overhead, and the quicker you can scale, if it's a proven model that will work, like if that model can work, if you have more money to scale it up, your chance of succeeding is so much greater if you have more money. Specifically, if you have 0% interest, not paying interest, not giving away equity, not giving away control.
I couldn't agree more. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. You're like a wealth of knowledge with this stuff. And my mind was just like blown away just with hearing you spit all this stuff out. So
yeah, no, it's been my pleasure. I saw you about to close out the show about 15 minutes ago. I'm like, wait, we have way more value.
I wasn't even about to close it out, actually.
Oh, you weren't?
Yeah,
okay,
I was just switching up. I was just transitioning the conversation a little bit.
Gotcha. Well, dude, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
I hope the viewers got some epic value today. And it's been really good to be here.
Yeah.
If you guys want to find me, King of Debt on Instagram, also creditstacking.com. I have a mentorship program where I teach people on all this stuff, on how to optimize their personal credit profile, how to get access to between $50,000 and $300,000 of 0% interest capital. I love funding. It's the number one thing that I'm best at and I love the most. So click the link below to learn more.
Love it, brother. Cool, man. Well, hey, appreciate you coming on. Let's definitely stay connected now that you're in San Diego.
Let's go.
Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.